Alrighty, here is Biz Coach Claire coming at you live. I want to talk to you about what you can control and what you cannot control. So many times we are, pouring our energy into things we really can't have no control over. So why are we pouring our energy there? So let's focus on the things that we can control. So here we go. Uh, Next screen. Alrighty. So can control. We can control what we decide. We can make our own decisions and decide even whether to stay in a toxic relationship or not. It's still our decision. And I'm speaking from experience. So ultimately, you can't blame anyone else. You have control over that. Your decisions. Decisions. You can control your thoughts. You can control your actions. Like, what are you going to do about certain situations? And then you can control what you do with your time. So, are you using it wisely? Do you use it to uh, veg out and watch? I'm guilty of it. Sometimes I just go and watch some sitcoms and watch some old shows or movies, and it's all good. But am I getting what I need to get done to build my business and get closer towards my goals? So, what can you control? You can control what you do with your time. You can control whether or not you're going to program your mind or reprogram your mind. And that is what I help people do. So you have control on shifting that and reprogramming. And you can control the now. You cannot control the past, what has happened to you in the past, but you can control what you decide to do now. You can't control maybe mistakes that you've made in the past. Trust me, I've made a lot of mistakes, and yet I have control of now. I can control. Actually, I didn't realize this, but I can control how to treat people and how to allow people, how to allow them to treat me, if that makes any sense. And kind of training them on what's acceptable and not acceptable, which ties in with the next column, gossip. People would call me to gossip about other people. And, at the end of the day, it was very time consuming, very energy draining, and so not like me. And yet I didn't have the courage or the bravery to say, hey, I can't do this. I can't partake in this. And even listening, being a listener in gossip is something that we can control. So now that I'm stronger, now that I'm wiser and understand that, I set my boundaries on my time and the conversations that we have. And gossip is definitely something that I can control, and I don't want to partake in that. Uh, I also can control what I eat and exercise, and if I exercise or not. So I can't control ultimately what the scale reads, but I can control this part of it, what I eat and if I'm exercising. Another thing that I can control is my space. I can control whether it's going to be cluttered, and sometimes it is, and sometimes I declutter. So many times I declutter, and so that is something that I can control because space holds a lot of our space represents us, holds a lot of energy. And actually, I recently realized and learned that uh, actually clutter kind of blocks the abundance. So just really decluttering is part of making space for abundance. So that is something we can control. Another thing that we can control is what I would love. Like I would love to, and deciding on what would you love, and that ties into vision building and creating a vision for your life. Something that I also teach, and I didn't know that I could control that part of it as well. So, what would I love in my vision? Creating a vision and actually manifesting it and bringing it forth. So that is something as well that I've recently learned. And breathing. Something as simple as breathing that we do subconsciously without even thinking about it. But when we actually slow down and are more mindful about our breathing, breathing is absolutely amazing. It separates us from, anxiety and fear. It brings forth actually getting more oxygen, brings forth more we're able to think, and we're able to think more clearly. I recommend deep breathing when you're taking a test. Actually, I went back to college, right, as an adult, and I was like 38 years old in college trying to learn again, and test taking was stressful. But I learned that, when we're stressed, we have shallow breathing. And so when we are taking the test, like I would just forget things, and I kept saying I'm so forgetful. But as I took a deep breath, oxygen went into my brain, and I was able to remember things and think about things. So breathing is so important, not only for test taking, not only in life when we're dealing with moments of anxiety, but also as you learn from me and with me about our conscious versus our subconscious mind, breathing actually ties the two of them together. So that's an important tool that I bring up quite often. And last but not least on here is things that we can control is whether or not we're on the abundance frequency. So that meaning, like, are we comparing ourselves to others? Like here it says competitor versus a creator. Like, are we comparing ourselves? There's trust me, there's so many other coaches out there that are doing what I do. And I could be like, oh man, they're so awesome. I suck. uh, I could feel like competitive and like there's lack of clients, but that's not true. The truth of the matter is that there's an abundance of clients. There's an abundance of people that need our value that we bring to the table, that we bring to this world. And so I take on the perspective of we are creators. There is no one like us. There is no one that can talk and think like us and bring our unique energy. So I encourage you to remind yourself when you're comparing and feeling like maybe you're not as whatever as so and so, remember that you are a creator. You are unique. You're one of a kind. There's no one like you. And you bring a certain energy. You bring your story. You bring your purpose and your passion so differently from anyone else. So uh, that is something you can control, that you are a creator and not a competitor. The next thing is faith versus fear. And a lot of my clients, a lot of the people I talk to, fear is what's holding us back because we are programmed and trained to walk around in society and use our five senses, like our what we're seeing, what we're hearing, what we're tasting, what we see in our bank account, our bank statements, or whatever it is. But what I've learned is that we should not trust or rely on our senses. That is going to lead to fear and all the bad news that we hear with our senses, right? We hear it with our senses, and yet we need to walk by faith, not by sight, because the truth of the matter is that we live in an abundant universe and everything works in our favor. And it's amazing that when we can control our thoughts, that we are going to walk by faith and not by sight, that amazing things happen. And I've seen it happen so many times. Um, so the other list, the can't control our past. A lot of times our energy is focused on, oh my goodness, I've made past mistakes. I've made, this has happened. Oh, but you don't know is another thing that I hear often. Like, that happened to me. Like, you don't know my childhood. I've been through blah, blah, blah. And yes, I get it. I get it. We have a lot of trauma in our lives. A lot of people do. Um, and yet we can't control what happens already in the past. But we can control now what we decide to do and how we can reprogram ourselves and how we want to show up in this world. Uh, Another thing we cannot control, is, of course, is the weather or the economy or the environment or the laws. So I'm not going to complain on what's going on or get myself so involved in all of those things that I cannot control, because that's a waste of my energy. My energy, I'm called instead to inspire and bring hope to others and help them transform their lives by the renewing of their minds. And that's what my mission is. And so I can't control those other things. So I'm not going to expend my energy on those things. Um, including future emergencies. There may be things that may pop up, and the Science of Getting Rich, which is one of the books I'm going to review with you here, it talks about that. Like, why sense worry about things that could potentially or not potentially happen? Why are we worried about that when we can focus on the now? Like, what is going on now? What can I do now? And Wallace Wattles says in this book about for future emergencies that if we are thinking about what could potentially happen, we are actually living with a double-minded. Like, our minds is in two places. So we can't control that. We can't control future potential emergencies that may or may not happen. And last but not least, we cannot control other people. We can't control how they feel. We can't control their habits. Even as a parent with 4 kids and a grandbaby and another one on the way, I can't control my own kids. It's up to them on their habits, their feelings, their choices. And last but not least, this is a huge one for me and my ladies, is what other people think of me. And we can't control that. We can't control, who cares if so and so does not like me. It's all good. I have the people that I love that care about me, and the other people, it's all good. They can have their opinion. It's not my business what they think of me. And I believe I have one more screen for you. This is a timeline because, like I said, it's the now that we can control. It's not our past and what's happened to us. And yes, that's part of our journey. I talk about it in my one of my videos where I talk about the inner mosaic, where I warn you, I get a little raw because I go and talk about what's happened to me in my timeline. And I think that is important. And I'll talk about it in the future about why inner mosaic work and knowing who we are as business owners is important, because it helps us create our message and marketing towards our ideal client, because we're actually speaking to that part of us in the past that's been hurt, and that we can speak their language. So I'm going a little deep on that, but it's very powerful. Anyway, thank you for listening. So that is a list of what you can and can't control. Of course, you can add more. My ladies have added more to their list of what they can and can't control. I love it. It's very powerful. Once you get a hold of what you can and cannot control, focus on what you can control, because that is going to be so powerful. Aloha and mahalo. It's Biz Coach Claire. Thank you for watching, subscribing, and all that fun stuff. I'm trying to find how I end this. Oh man, this is my new technology here, and I have 2 screens, which I'm not accustomed to. Bye-bye.